Hey kids, this is Patty from Deep Space Sparkle, and today's lesson is a watercolor landscape based on America's Southwest. Now I found this book, and it's called Coyote Places the Stars. And it's basically a Native American legend about a curious coyote who builds a ladder to the stars. Now there are pictures in this book that show beautiful watercolor paintings, and I wanted to show you one. And it basically shows the cute little coyote jumping up and catching a little butterfly. That's not what we're going to draw. We're going to focus on the landscape itself. We're going to draw a foreground, we're going to draw a middle ground, and then a background. And here's what we're going to do. In this handout, this shows you some ideas of what you might want to draw for your landscape. And there's three basic areas. There's the foreground, which is the items closest to the bottom of the paper. The background are the items closest to the top of the paper, and the middle ground is kind of up to you. It's the things that are in the middle. We're going to be drawing things like prickly pears, agaves, maybe some aloe plants or even some rocks. If you want to, you can draw some little creatures. In the middle of the paper, we're going to draw maybe some rivers or rock formations, and at the very top of the paper, which is the background, we're going to be drawing the arches or the rock formations. So let's get started. You're going to need some oil pastels for this project, and here's the trick. In the picture, the artist used white resist. You can see all the lines are light, not dark. And if you want to, you can choose a white or a light yellow oil pastel, or perhaps you might use a dark color. I like to use all the colors, so it's completely up to you what colors you'd like to use to start with. So just for fun, I'm going to start with some green. And I'm going to draw an aloe plant, and this is how you would draw one. You just kind of pick a point near the bottom, because that's the foreground, and you're just going to draw a shape. Now here's the deal. You kind of want to draw the shape a little bit on the large side, because we're going to be painting with watercolor paints a little bit later. And you can remember that bigger shapes, easier to paint. Small shapes, more difficult to paint. So you can just keep on going, drawing some shapes. Now you recognize that shapes are basically just lines that start at one point and end at one point. Pretty easy. They don't have to look like anything that you know. They can just be any shape that you like. That's my agave. I'm going to draw maybe a prickly pear. I'm going to choose a darker green color, and this is how you would draw it. You just want to start with a line, but you don't want to make it too big, because the prickly pears have these big flat patties that are just like a big kind of an oval, and they just extend beyond that line. And here's the fun part. Then you get to draw another line and another patty, another line, and keep on going until you're happy. This one is going in behind here. It's sneaking up, it's going to jump over and end there. Now this is the fun part about oil pastels. You may not recognize it now, but if you take a white oil pastel and you make little tiny marks on your little prickly pear or whatever that you might draw, you don't see them now, but when we do the watercolor paints, you'll see them then. Okay. I think maybe I'll draw a rock. You might want to draw another cactus, maybe a saguaro cactus, or maybe a little creature. Here's a rock. Here's an easy way to do it. Just draw straight. Oops. Your oil pastels are going to break all the time. If they do, just peel off the paper again. And I find that broken oil pastels work a lot better than the new ones. So draw a straight line and then make a curve that has no particular place to go, just a random curvy line. And if you want to, draw a few little bumps in the rock. Now I'm pretty happy with my foreground. Okay, so now we're going to draw the middle ground, and I like blue, so I'm going to take out a blue. And here's what I want you to do. Just start at one side of the paper and jump over anything that comes into your way. So I'm jumping over my agave, I'm jumping over my prickly pear, finding a little open spot, and I'm just going to draw another line. Maybe it's going to be wavy. I'm not really sure what this line is supposed to be. It's just a design. Now I'm going to take some brown, and I'm going to draw some rock formations. So I was at Arches National Monument about a year ago, and they have the most beautiful rock formations. So it basically looks like this when you look off into the horizon. You have a straight line, everything's pretty flat. And you want to keep on going all the way across the paper. Jump over any little items that get in your way. And then here's how to draw a rock formation. Start with the bottom. And it's kind of like a little flat rock. And then you hop on top of that, and draw another little rock, but it's getting smaller. Then do another one, and then maybe another one. Then go over to this side. Do pretty much the same thing. The rocks can be split, as they often are. It's like a little cake, don't you think? Now to draw the arch, all you have to do is go up and draw a line that has another line on top, and that's a rock, an arch rather. So now you can keep on going. You can draw more rock formations in the background, or you might even want to draw a little mountain. Press hard with your oil pastel. So if your oil pastel looks like this, I'm going to use a purple because I'm in the mood for purple. If it looks kind of really light like that, do yourself a favor and go over that line one more time so you have a nice thick wall. And I think I'll do another mountain in behind. I like this purple. Now remember that coyote who built that ladder? I think I'll make mine a night sky. I want to show you a few options a little bit later, but I've already decided that I want to make a night sky. So I'm going to use some white oil pastel to make little stars. You can use, I don't know, dots if you want to. You can actually make a constellation. Or you can do little stars like you do in kindergarten, little asterisks, whatever you want to make. Make as many as you want. And you can even add a little bit of yellow if you want to. Okay, the very final step, and I'm going to come back to the coyote picture. In the picture, you can see little tiny squiggle lines, not only in the cactus, but also in the foreground and the middle ground and in the background. There's all sorts of little lines. So to do that, just take a color that you like the most, and you can make lines that go across this rock formation here, or a river, or whatever that's supposed to be. You can make little lines in your plants. The more little lines, the more interesting your painting will be. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the watercolor paints. Okay kids, now that we have our drawing done, it's time for the fun stuff, which is painting. So here are a couple of options for you. You can do a very realistic landscape that you would think a desert would look like, blue sky, kind of orangey brown rocks, or you can have a lot of fun. Now you can paint your sky any color you want. The only thing to keep in mind is what color you're going to paint your rocks and what color you're going to paint the sky. They shouldn't be the same color because you want the rocks to stand out. You can paint your cactus, your rocks, anything in the bottom portion of your picture, whatever color you want. I kind of stuck with the pretty typical cactus plant colors, but you can be a little bit more brave than me. In the book, the coyote was building a ladder to the stars. So if you made stars in your night sky, you're not going to be painting a yellow sky. You want a nice dark blue, almost black sky, and I'll show you how to do that. On your table, you should have a tray of watercolor paints. You should also have access to some water, and it's not necessary, but if you have a paper towel or a sponge, that's great. If you don't have that, we're going to use the placemat to clean your brushes as well. So I'm going to start, I think I'll start at the bottom. You're going to take your brush and just kind of pick a color, and I'm going to stick with this green. And if your paints are completely dry, so no one has used them before you, you need to kind of get them a little bit wet because they're a little bit thirsty at this point. So I'm just going to go around like that. And here's the important thing about a brush. You really want to use the very tip of the brush, and you don't want to press down too hard. So look how big this brush is, but look how tiny that little tip is, and see what it can do. You're going to paint over your oil pastel drawing, and you'll notice right away that something happens. The little yellow ochre lines that I drew are resisting the watercolor paint, and that's called watercolor resist. Oil pastels and watercolors, they don't like each other much. They're going to resist one another. You'll also notice another thing. My colors it's getting light as the paint runs out. That's a good thing. So that first cactus, done. I'm going to clean my brush and just tap your brush in the bottom of the water container and then just drag the bristles across the lid, just like that, or the rim. And choose another color. I'm going to choose this yellow. And I'm gonna just run it around, add a little tiny bit more water. This yellow is thirsty. And I'm gonna paint this prickly pear. Now, the yellow against the dark green, not so good. So I think I'll fix that. I'm gonna take another color, maybe this dark green, see what this looks like. You can paint on top of that yellow, and you can see what happens when you mix two colors together. It's okay if the different prickly pears on one plant are a little bit different. So you can see I have a yellow green all the way up to a blue green. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to paint the rocks. And here are two colors I don't want to see you using. Mostly because these paints, they're not very expensive, and the black is so super black that it'll take over your entire painting. So we're going to avoid the black. We're also going to avoid the white because we don't need it. We don't need to mix tints today. So the colors that I want you to use are all the other colors that you see other than black and white. So I'm going to start with this brown. I'm going to make my rocks brown. And I'm just going to paint around. Just like that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to paint this picture and I'm going to come back and talk to you about the sky in just a few minutes. So now I painted the entire picture except for the sky. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just turn this around so that my sky is a little bit closer to me. Now, I painted stars, or actually I drew stars, and so my sky is going to be a night sky. You may have drawn clouds, so your sky might be a daytime sky, or you may have had a sunset. It's kind of completely up to you. But if you did stars, this is what's going to happen. You want some type of dark blue sky. So you could use a blue like this, but maybe it's not dark enough. And that's just the plain blue that you see in the palette. But try this. Take a little blue and put it someplace on the tray and just mix a little tiny bit of water in, just like that, so you're making a puddle. Clean your brush pretty well. Drag the bristles over the rim, and then you want to take some orange paint and pick up a little bit of orange paint and mix it in with the blue. And you can see right away that it's almost like a navy blue. If it's not navy enough, add a little bit more blue. And you can take that color and just go ahead and paint over your nighttime sky, and you'll see what happens is that you'll have a beautiful nighttime sky. You might be asking yourself, well, why can't I just use the black? Well, the black is pretty strong. In fact, it's so strong that it might cover over your stars that you've drawn. So this way, you can be sure that those beautiful white stars that you've created are going to show. All done. So I just finished painting my Southwest landscape painting. Now it's time for you to do yours. You're gonna be using as many colors as you want, keeping in mind using different colors for your mountains and different colors for your sky. Okay, time to get started.